Resources, inspiring interviews, business practices, and practical advice to take your art career to the next level. Join Sergio Gomez in today's Artist Next Level and get ready to take control of your career.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Art Next Level podcast. I am very excited to be here with you once again. In this episode, my friend, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a podcast episode that I had the pleasure to be part of with my good friend, Luis Martin. He's an artist from Brooklyn, New York, and he has this awesome podcast that's called Studio Confessions. If you haven't heard his podcast, check it out. It's called Studio Confessions. And you can find it in iTunes, you can find it in Anchor.fm and many of the other podcast platforms. You can also find Luis Martin himself on Instagram at Art Engineer. Again, Art Engineer, that's his Instagram name. You can find him there. He's a great artist and also has this beautiful podcast called Studio Confessions, and it's awesome. You really have to check it out. So what I'm going to do right now is share with you this episode where I'm a guest to his podcast, and I want to share it with you because I think it turned out pretty awesome. It turned out pretty good. We had a great conversation, and I think you will find value on this conversation. Enjoy.
Do you have time to watch TV? I mean, really immerse yourself in a narrative and the images in which they're playing out. I don't get to watch much TV. I'm too involved in my projects, music, phone. So what I do watch has to give me something. Feed me in some way. I've been watching The Marvelous Miss Maisel. I know. If you haven't heard about it, it takes place in the 50s. The central character is Miss Maisel. She seems to have a perfect life, has 2 kids, a husband, lives in the Upper West Side, has 2,000 hats. It's the 50s. What else could you ask for? But that all changes when she discovers her husband's having an affair, which leads her to discover her latent talent, stand-up comedy. It's a sweet show. It's created by Amy Sherman Palladino. She's the creator of the Gilmore Girls. I know. I love it though, I really do, because it's a safe space. No zombies, no wars, no terrorism. It's a nice escape. But it wasn't until recently that I realized why I love the show. Like with a capital L. It's about an artist. Midge, the central character, is an artist. She is really good at what she does, but because she's a woman in the 50s, Jewish, she has to fight hard to have the space to be an artist. Sound familiar? One central theme in the show is this idea of sacrifice, a word I really don't like because of its weight and sanctimonious connotations. It's an idea that artists, real, in air quotations, artists, and real ambitious people of all types have to come to terms with. The idea that in order to have a successful career, one has to sacrifice having to have certain things like joy, health, both mental and physical, or most importantly to me, family. So I wanted more insight. I thought I'd speak with someone who, if he doesn't have it all yet, he certainly is on the verge. Sergio Gomez. If you haven't heard of him, he's a big deal. He's an artist, curator, creative entrepreneur, with emphasis on creative entrepreneur. Awesome. He has shown around the world, has a few MFAs, has a great podcast. Hey, Art Next listeners, I know you're listening. Thanks for hearing us. So, if this is not enough, Sergio has a great family. I know this. I follow him on Instagram and Facebook. I stalk them. No, I'm just kidding. I have met these people. They're real. His kids, his wife, Dr. Yanina Gomez, a maverick in her own right. They are real. So how does this happen? Can you tell me a little bit about your origin story, Sergio? Like a superhero.
Hey, Luis, how's it going, man? How are you?
I'm good. Tell me, how did your superpowers evolve in the realm of art?
Well, a little bit of my background story really quickly. Grew up in Mexico. The funny thing is, like, even though I grew up in Mexico City, which is like such a cultural mega city, I didn't really realize that you could actually be an artist. You know, I really
Right.
thought that to be an artist, you had to be dead, because that's all I saw.
Absolutely.
As I went to the museums, right? So, and I never met a living practicing artist until I came to Chicago back in 1988. That was like kind of like my very first introduction, when I really opened my eyes, like, wow, you can actually do this thing, you know? And but I always loved the art. You know, I always loved drawing and things. That's things I was doing in school. But I was 16 years old when we moved here to Chicago. And that's really when like the ball came on, and my high school teacher said, hey, you know, you seem to be good at art. Have you considered an art career? And that was like the very first question that somebody had first time asked me, do you want to be an artist? And that
Wow.
I said, I guess so. And that was the beginning of it. Went to school, and, you know, the rest is history. But that's
What a beautiful
started.
invitation.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, sometimes we underestimate or those kind of high school teachers or early school teachers that kind of gives us that little seed that whatever is in your mind is actually possible.
Oh, absolutely. I love educators. I love teachers. I have teachers in my family. You're an educator. I've been an educator. There's an important role that I think we need to have more support and an arena for. But in thinking about this art career, was family in that vision of when you thought about, I'm going to be an artist, I'm going to have an art career? Did family fit in that? Or was that something that kind of just happened?
It's kind of like happened, you know. It was never a plan to say, well, I'm gonna get married and I'm gonna have kids and so on. You know, you were excited about being an artist and kind of all the possibilities that could be. And it was in college, really. I was doing my master's at Governor State, and I was in the art department, and then there was the psychology department, which was on the other side of the campus. But there was a leadership club that met, you know, once every 2 weeks or so. And that a friend and I, we started it, but it was for everybody. It wasn't just for our students.
Fantastic.
And so my wife now, Diana, she came to school a year after me, and she saw the club, she joined the club, and that's where we met. So the funny story is that I always tell people, is like, you know, when she came to the club, I was the president of the club, right? And then she, the following year, she ran for president of the club, and she won the president of the club.
Usurper, I love it.
Yeah, so like I think we should just get married, right? Then we can run it together. And
that's fantastic.
But pretty much that's how it started. And yeah, you know, it wasn't really planned ahead. It just happened, you know, as many of the things in life.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to point out the importance of kind of crossing disciplines, because a lot of times we self-segregate to, oh, I'm an artist, I'm gonna hang out with my artist, or I'm an illustrator, let me hang out with illustrators. Even within the artistic community, we tend to do that. Sculptors here, blah, blah, blah. But to actually cross disciplines with psychology, with anything else, it makes for such an enriching interaction, right?
Yeah, that's right. And it was because of that club that I was actually outside of the art department, because just like you said, you know, I lived in the art studio at the college. You know, I just go there, stay there all day, and then go back home. But it was just that little mini adventure outside of the art department, you know, that got me to meet my wife, I guess.
No, it's amazing what happens when you step out. You just have to peek your head out, and it happens. That's fantastic.
Right, exactly.
Now, you guys have collaborated several times and still do. Can you tell me about how that did that just happen, or was that something you guys planned?
Well, yeah, that part was actually planned from the very early on, because we had such a great time, like running or being part of this club. And then, you know, kind of as we started dating, and then as soon as we got married, which was just about a year after, you know, we really thought, you know, geez, we kind of enjoy working together in some way and fashion. So it would be really nice if one day, you know, sometime in the future, we can actually do something together. Back then, we didn't know what it was, because, you know, she was in psychology field, I was in the art field. So, you know, we just didn't know how it could actually happen. But it's something that we always had in the back of our mind. And it wasn't until about 4-5 years ago when she started to changing careers, and she started to go into other things outside of her field, that we started to think about the ideas of, well, maybe we can actually start working together in some way or fashion. So we started with, she started a brand, like a t-shirt brand for, to kind of to help collect school supplies for kids.
Oh, cool.
And here in Chicago, so we did that for about a year and a half or so. And so we teamed up with local artists, and they designed a t-shirt, and then, we would get them printed, and then she would go to schools and deliver, school supplies to kids. So that's kind of like the first time we really started to doing like some more collaboration within the art, in the art realm. And then after that, then she actually worked for a whole year with her gallery, with the 33 Contemporary. That's, where she went there every day. And
as a curator, or
no, more as kind of as a running the gallery business.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, looking for clients. She really wanted to know what it was to be, a gallerist. So she ran the gallery. She attended like the Chicago Chamber of Commerce, to find clients and all that. So she's there for a whole year. And then after that, she realized, well, that's not really what I want to do. But it was really for her a way to see how the whole art world worked, right? And finding collectors and clients for the gallery. And so it was great. We made some great contacts, and it was really awesome. And then after that, that's when this kind of happened by life, right? I wouldn't say accident, but just the way of life, where through the gallery, we were talking to so many artists and working with so many artists and helping so many artists in many ways, that we realized, well, maybe there's actually a way in which we can both together put together the psychological aspect and also the professional development business aspect, and maybe merge them together and create something that artists could be part of. And that's how we started Art Next Level, out of those conversations. And so we've been collaborating with that for the last 3 years.
It feels so right, because in some way you found a balance where you're supporting each other's talents. Mm-hmm. And to hear that it happens so organically is really inspiring. And I know anyone who's listening to this can relate to being in a relationship where it's not always this quote marriage of potential. Mm-hmm. So to have found yourself or to be in a place where you're both kind of shining is fantastic.
Thank you.
So congratulations to both of you on that.
Thanks, man. And it is challenging, because at the same time, it's your partner. So when you're at home, you cannot help it but talk about the business. And
absolutely,
she's actually the one that has to remind me all the time. Okay, I'm out of work right now. I'm not in the clock time. It's like, okay, shoot. Because
which is a good alarm system to have, right?
Yeah, if it's up to me, I'm always talking about it. So, but those are the challenges that you have, and something that kind of might help to anyone who might be working with a partner in some way or another. Could be even like a studio manager or assistant or somebody who helps you with your business as an artist. I think kind of understanding the role each one has at the very beginning, so that we are not trying to make override each other's decisions. I think that's very critical.
Absolutely. That's sound advice. Absolutely. Now, in the show, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, she's a woman, stand-up comedian, and she's being faced with all this resistance because, they don't believe that it's a place for a woman or in comedy. Now, with artists, we're a little bit more mainstream in the culture now, but what do you think are the new ways that artists are connecting with people? Because it's not the same as it was maybe even 5 years ago, where you can, show in a gallery or put up your own show. You have to be a little bit more proactive. And I know you're super proactive. What are your best practices for connecting with others?
I think that's kind of like what makes me excited right now, that I think there's so many ways in which we can be connecting, with people outside of our studio space. Of course, the personal one, right? Where you physically connect with one another. That's been around forever, as long as we've been walking around the earth. But in terms of the tools that we have now, that we have social media, that we have the internet, that we have email, that we have all these things, that just makes it such a playground, I think, for artists particularly to connect with the audience, right? In which we didn't have before. And, just the fact that we can be in the studio, and then 2 minutes later I can post something, and then 5 minutes later there's this interaction from people looking what I'm doing, and then 15-20 minutes after that, then I can reply to those comments, and the list goes on, right?
Yeah.
It's daunting for many people, but I think at the same time it's so exciting. I think for me, kind of, once I made a shift in my mind a couple of years ago, where I realized, wait a minute, this is not about marketing. This is not a marketing tool. This is a communication tool.
Mm.
Where if I change my brain to think of, okay, I'm gonna go to social to do my artist marketing, which is about promotion, where what if I just go at it with the mindset of, let's see what conversations can I engage in, both commenting on other people and also commenting on people that engage with me in conversation. And that totally changed my field of how I see social media, how I enjoy it, and what I do in it.
That makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think about when I thought about marketing, something that always came up in my head was oversaturation. I just didn't want people to get fatigued of what I'm posting. But you're right. It's not about marketing, but it's about connecting with people who get excited about what they see. And that's how you know who your real community, your real audience is, right? People who won't or who stay on and don't unfollow you. And that's okay if they unfollow you, but those that do stay are the people who want to hear what you're doing and are excited about your next move.
Right.
So that's really exciting.
Yeah, and I think also something that you do so well is your email, for example. When you send out an email, which I read all of them.
Thanks so much.
I reached out, your last one, because I really enjoy the way you speak to your audience through your email newsletter. And, I get a lot of email newsletters because of the gallery from artists who I subscribe to. And most of the time they are announcements. They are, this is what's coming up, blah, 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 blah. But yours is so personal and it's inviting to participate in what you are talking about. And it's exactly the same thing. You're using that kind of marketing tool to create really interesting communication.
Yeah, no, it's so important. And I mean, all we can really do is kind of look in the mirror and ask, okay, what do you want? What would you want? And the truth of the matter is that I'm somewhat of a recluse. I just want to stay home and make art. So all of these invitations are great. And it feels good to be included. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what is the real connection that you're going to make with this person through this email? If it's not, oh, sorry, we can't make the party,
Exactly. And because you do it once and twice and you continue doing that, when the email shows up in your inbox, even you may have another 30 emails that you could skip or read, but because you already had a good experience with the previous email, you want to read the next one. And I think that's the key, right? Consistency, which you're very consistent on that. Sometimes I have artists that we talk about these things and they try to say, well, Sergio, I tried to make a conversation, nobody answers, so then forget it. So no, you just have to be at it. People have to get used to have conversations with you so that they want to continue them. If it's just one of a time, then it's like,
it's no different from making art, right? Because when you make art, you're not going to get instant likes or instant gratification. You have to provide your own pats on your back. So when you send out these emails and you don't hear anything, radio silence, that's okay. Just relax. And then when you do get an email or a reply, it's that much more meaningful. But I understand with all this pressure to have thousands of followers, to make it big, it is a little daunting, right? But it's so important to make these connections and make it value, make it count where it has to.
Exactly. Yeah, totally agree.
Now, to close the conversation, I wanted to ask you a little bit about what's happening now. Sometimes when we close conversations, we talk about the future, but I'm really interested in what excites you right now. What are the projects that you're working on that will guarantee your exciting art world future? What's going on?
Yeah, that's a good question, Luis. I try to always do things that excite me at the moment, right? And then organically transform them as life goes by, right?
Sure.
Which is how I have run my gallery. I never started the gallery with the intention of, being a mega gallery or something. It's just I want to have a gallery and then just run it as it makes sense at each season. And it has been evolving and changing. And, you've been part of that. And That's how I like to look at things. So right now, what makes me really excited is the Breakfast with Sergio show that I started last year. It always keeps me thinking of, what am I going to share today? What's good? Who can I bring in? How can I bring value to those who take the time to watch it? Which it started as a quick kind of experiment last year. I was, I think, the spring of last year, and I said, well, I want to do something that is quick. Gives some quick advice to artists or create some quick conversations. And I don't want to do another, because I already have the podcast. I don't want to do something too complicated, and I don't have a whole lot of time. So I thought, well, I always enjoy my breakfast. Might as well click live while before I eat my breakfast, and for 5 to 10 minutes, just talk about something. And so that's how it started. I just put my phone, and then I click live, and then I started, ranting about, something related to a tool that I've been using, or something I learned, or something that's been useful for me as an artist, and just sharing it with the people out there. So I started with Facebook and Instagram, and then people started to commenting and watching it. And then said, okay, I'm going to do this 3 times a week. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it just took off, and it just makes me so excited right now, as I go now into kind of this 2019, looking into, okay, what shape is Breakfast with Sergio going to take, so I can take it to the next level in terms of the production value and what's offered also to the audience, because it's just growing, and I'm super excited about that. So that, when I wake up in the morning, is one of the first things I think about. So, what am I going to do this week for Breakfast with Sergio?
Fantastic.
And, it just excites me. It's work, but it's work that I enjoy doing. It keeps me connected to my audience, and that kind of feeds me, fuels my energy. And yeah, so that's kind of like the main thing right now. And of course, this year, in terms of my own art, as in my art studio, I just expanded a little bit in my studio space, which is fun.
Wow.
Preparing for the new body of work that I want to do. Last year was a busy year, had a lot of traveling, and so I didn't produce a whole lot, but I was okay with it, because I knew that was a season in which I had to, fulfill those shows. This year, so it's less number of shows, and so then I can kind of really focus on producing the next value work.
That's fantastic. And really, going back to your Breakfast with Sergio, there's something very special about it, because it's kind of accessible, it's non-threatening, and most importantly, an aspect that I'm really excited about is that it's documentation of a conversation that's very, it could happen when you're in an elevator, or the person next to you on an airplane. It feels like it's spontaneous and lighthearted, which it can't always be carried out in a conversation about business or about art practices. But over breakfast, it's kind of a sacred space, and to be able to share that with people is a brilliant idea.
Yeah, thank you, Luis. And what's funny? Like, sometimes I run into people that are not even artists, and they watch it just because
that's your crossover.
Yeah. So there's this other guy the other day, we were in one of the art fairs here in Chicago, we're looking at, and then a lady walked by and said, "Are you the guy who does the breakfast?" And I'm like, yeah. This is like, "Are you an artist?" Is like, I'm always interested. Who's watching? Said, "No, I actually I'm a marketing person at Target, but I really enjoy watching it whenever it comes into my feed." And like, oh, that is cool. And then I had also received messages like from art collectors who just watch it, and just random people that sometimes just, it shows up in their feed, and they might watch a few minutes of it and then forward it to a friend that's an artist of some sort. So, it's the power of the media.
Yeah.
And you say, in a non-threatening way, I didn't want to make a show that's too refined to produce, because then kind of it loses that spontaneity of, the live video.
Absolutely. Well, I'd love to see this on Netflix. I'd love to, see it on Hulu. So yeah, let's get you there.
Yeah, that hopefully, as we go forward, I really want to push it to the next level, probably by 2020. So right now, still experimenting with ideas and fun, and right now that is simple. Because once it becomes something bigger, then you also have bigger restrictions.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I love.
And I'm just having fun with it.
Exactly. I love doing my podcast and talking about conspiracy theories here and there.
Yeah,
which you can do when you're on nobody's payroll, but
Exactly.
It's part of the goal. But thank you for this great insight. I mean, you are a well of information, and I've told you this before. You're worth your weight in gold. So I hope to spend more time with you in the near future and watch The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. She's everywhere.
I will check it out. I'm really interested.
It's really silly, but it's fun. And everybody else, listen to Sergio Gomez's podcast, Art Next Level. It's everywhere too. Find it on Apple and other podcast platforms, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, just search for The Artist Next Level or my name, Sergio Gomez, and it should show up somewhere.
Cheers, Sergio. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Luis. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Check out our website at www.theartistnextlevel.com, where you will find our podcast library, learn about our upcoming webinars, find resources relevant to your career, and much more. Thanks for listening to today's podcast, and we'll see you at the next level.